I am yours, I am yours, I am yours. Send me, Lord. I am yours, I am yours, I am yours.
Welcome to the Gospel-Centered Pro-Life Podcast, a podcast designed to equip, encourage, and challenge you in pro-life ministry, and always with a focus on the gospel. Stay tuned.
I felt your passion, I've touched your heart.
Use me, Lord, use me, Lord.
Welcome to the Gospel-Centered Pro-Life Podcast. I'm Vicki Kosiork, and I'm here with Daniel Parks.
How's it going?
Yeah, it's going pretty well. It's pretty hot out there today.
Yep.
Pretty
It's pretty
miserable
hot
day.
across the nation.
It is, all that global warming stuff.
Yeah,
But anyway,
I think so.
despite the heat, we were out there on the sidewalk.
Well, you were out there. I
You
was
were
not.
You were not.
I was in the
I was-
office.
Right, you were cool.
On Zoom meetings and
Yep.
doing the other things that
Yep.
I do from day to day.
And I was melting along with our team in the heat. However, we nonetheless set up a camera
Okay.
and did not forget that.
All right. That's
Because this is a critical component of being a safe and responsible sidewalk team.
important. Yeah.
And that's what we're going to talk about today,
Okay.
is strategic camera use.
All right. That's kind of a weird subject.
It is.
We did a couple of weeks ago. I think it was the podcast before last, maybe. We talked about safety on the sidewalk.
Right.
I don't remember. Did we mention camera usage?
I think we
probably
mentioned
did.
it, and then we've mentioned camera usage frequently
Yeah.
in these podcasts, but we've never really just devoted a podcast to here are some do's and don'ts with the camera, and we thought this is good. We really should do something more targeted on
Yeah.
everything there is to know in the sidewalk
Right.
about camera use.
Yeah. And so specifically what we're talking about, most of you guys listening are going to know exactly what we're talking about, but those who don't, is we're talking about a camera that's placed in a strategic area, not for filming patients.
Never.
We've been accused of that.
Right.
But we literally have no vested interest in filming patients and spying on them or whatever.
Right.
It's really for accountability, because we know that going out there confronting evil, one of the darkest places we believe in our city, where evil takes place day in and day out, and one of the most evil places at the gates of hell, at the abortion centers, we're going to confront that evil. It can be potentially a volatile situation. Pro-aborts are out there, right? There could be some angry dads, angry moms, angry friends that come and try to get in our face and try to threaten us or even assault us. And actually, I just heard this happened in Southern California. There was an older couple doing ministry. I didn't even tell you about this, doing ministry on the sidewalk at an abortion center there. And some lady come up, apparently hit the guy, one of the guys in the face. He fell back and hit his head.
Oh, no.
And he's at the hospital.
Oh,
And
good
has
grief.
some-
Wow.
Some pretty significant stuff going on. They're filing charges against the lady.
Yeah.
Whether or not they had a camera going, I don't know though. But I will say that things like that can happen. Now, none of this, we don't walk in fear, right? God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. So we're not going to walk in fear, but we are going to walk in wisdom.
Right.
So if things like that do happen, it's important that we have a camera so we can hold the people accountable. Because if we don't have a camera going, oftentimes it can be just our word against theirs.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it's for our safety. It definitely is an important tool
Yeah.
on the sidewalk outreach box that you should have. And in this article, we wrote an article, as we always do, to accompany the podcast, or almost always.
Yeah.
But this article talks about, first of all, kind of just the general reason that
Yeah.
you've just outlined for why there's a camera out there in the first place. And then we just go through some of the do's and don'ts. And
Yeah.
the first thing is, okay, you need a camera. We agree with that. Where do you place it?
Yeah.
Where do we put the camera? Maybe go into a little, Daniel, if you can, about what kind of camera we use,
Yeah.
because maybe people wouldn't know.
Yeah. So the cameras that we use, that we encourage people to get, that we have available for our missionaries to use, or that if people want to buy them, this is what I point them to. I'm not going to be able to say the name right
Okay.
because they're made in China,
Okay.
but it's MIUFLY. So,
Mufle.
Mufla, or something like that. I don't know.
Okay.
But those, and they make a couple different versions. The one we get is kind of bigger, and it looks like a lot of what you'll see that police officers have, these body
Right.
cams that they
Yeah.
use. And the reason why we use that is because it's all self-contained. It's got the memory built into it, so you don't have to buy an SD card. It's got a battery built into it, and they'll record 4 to 5 hours straight through. And you can actually put the recording, because it's got limited amount of memory, like 32 gigabytes. That may not mean anything to anyone out there. But what it does mean is that eventually that memory is going to run out, whether
Right.
it's 4 hours, 5 hours, or, if you use it consecutive days, eventually that memory is going to run out. And so you need to set the camera up, and there's a feature in it to make it loop. So that means it keeps on recording. And when it gets done and it gets full, the memory gets full, it's going to record on top of the previous recordings. If an incident does take place, you just stop the camera, and it's got a screen on it so you can show the image. But a lot of times the image is so small, if I need to show an image to a police officer or something, I'll kind of connect it to my computer and show them from my computer. But yeah, I mean, certainly if you guys want to know, reach out to me. You can shoot me an email, daniel@lovelife.org, and I'll send you a link to the one that we use.
Yeah.
But you can go on Amazon. I mean, there's other companies. They're about $130.
Yeah, they're not
But
cheap.
in my experience, you get what you pay for. And these are actually, I mean, we put them out there in the rain and
Yeah.
harsh weather, and they pretty well stand up to what we put them
Yeah.
through. So
And
it's the ones we use.
surprisingly, we place them, and we're going to talk about placement in detail, but we do place them on top of our cars across the street
Yeah.
from where we stand, a 2-lane road. And the sound is surprisingly good. You
Yeah.
can hear what's happening between the pro-abortion crowd and us,
Yeah.
moms, whatever, on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So we've really liked these cameras. They do look like a body cam, as you pointed out, but we would caution people not to wear body cams.
Yeah.
And a lot of sidewalk counselors outside of Love Life, I don't see so many our people using them as body cams, but a lot of people do. And there's a reason why we recommend that you
Yeah.
do not.
Yeah, I always discourage people from wearing a body cam on your body.
Right.
Because number one, it's going to cut down on the interactions that you're going to have with women going into the abortion center. I mean, you stop someone going into the abortion center, whether they're walking up or they pulled in their vehicle, they stop to talk with you, and then they see that you've got a camera on, immediately they're going to shut down.
Yeah.
Either that, or they're going to get aggressive and get offended. You think it might
Right.
it might neutralize that, but sometimes it makes people more angry to see a camera because it kind of feels like a breach of privacy, and it really kind of is.
Yeah.
And even though you're not using the camera to film them, still they're seeing that camera and they think you're going to use it to plaster it on the internet or social media. And the truth is, we know that these women are coming to these places. Many are driving hours away, even though there might be an
Right.
abortion center in their town. They're driving a couple of towns or cities over because they don't want to be seen at an abortion clinic.
Yeah.
And so when they feel like they're being recorded, then that's a problem. So that's why we always encourage folks not to put it on your body, but to put it either on a vehicle. Some cities put it on like, a signpost, maybe a light post, something away from the area of engagement, but still pointed at the area of engagement. For example, like at Latrobe, the main area of engagement is that driveway where people pull in.
And that's where we minister
Yeah,
here at
right.
Latrobe, right?
And that's where there's a lot of pro-aborts there.
Yeah.
If someone gets angry and comes in our face, you can never have a camera everywhere that's going to get every interaction. This is just impossible. You can put 15 cameras up and you're never going to pick up on everything that takes place, but have it at the area of engagement. That's where most of hostile activity might take place.
Yeah.
And, you're doing the best you can because you got to kind of weigh out because you got to set the camera up. You got to make sure you charge it. You got to make sure, there's some work to do with getting that camera out there. It's worth it. But if you're trying to set up like 3 or 4 cameras, it'll become not worth it anymore and you'll just stop doing it altogether. So it's best to set up one, make it not too difficult for you or for your teams to set up. And I would encourage you, if you're listening to this, and you're in one of our Love Life cities, I would encourage for the sidewalk leaders there to get a camera for each team for each day. You should have a
Right.
team lead for each day or each each shift, and get a camera for each shift so that each leader has a camera and they take care of that camera, make sure it's charged up and make sure, it gets set up and all of that stuff.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And one of the other reasons that you have often mentioned in the past for why you would not wear it on your body is you only see what happens directly in front of you.
Right.
If you're wearing a body cam, whereas if it's set up in the distance, you're going to see things coming from behind.
Yeah.
And from all angles,
Yeah.
hopefully. So it's really important. We actually park our cars strategically for the best position possible where we can mount the camera. The one advantage of putting it on or even inside a car, you're going to muffle the sound. So just think of that. But if it's on a car, it's on your personal property. It already is your personal property. Whereas if you're going to put it on a telephone pole or a tree or whatever, it's no longer on your personal property.
Yeah.
And I think it's a little bit easier to protect it.
Right.
And to make a case that
Yeah.
this was your personal property.
Yeah, but I will say, if someone comes up and steals your camera or whatever,
Yeah.
even if you have it on a light post or a sign post or something like that, people still can't steal your stuff.
Right.
If you lean your nice $150 umbrella, which I hope you don't own a $150 umbrella, but if you did, and you leaned it against a signpost and someone come up and stole it right in front of you, they would still be a thief and they would still be liable, criminally liable for stealing your property, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so you got a $130 camera, someone comes up and steals it just because it's on a light post. That's not okay, and you should press charges against them for doing so.
Yeah. Something about being really careful about filming patients. I think I have told this story before, but I'll tell it again because this is a great podcast to be sure it's mentioned. There was a woman who was very engaged with me, definitely about to choose life, about to go on our mobile ultrasound unit. We had really clicked. And because of an incident that happened right there at the driveway that had nothing to do with this woman or me and our discussion, one of our team members came over and started filming. She was not trying to film this mom. She was trying to film the other person who was trying to run me over.
Yeah.
And, but the mom didn't know that.
Right.
And she was livid.
Right.
And it absolutely shut down that discussion. She was furious, drove into the abortion center. She ended up actually choosing life.
Yeah.
She did calm down, come out later, but that almost sabotaged and almost cost that child its life.
Yeah.
So be really careful in all of the camera use that it's very clear you are not there to capture video or photographs of the women.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
I
that's
think
going to happen, right?
it's going to happen
but that's
naturally.
not the intention.
Right.
And we would never use the video. Like, what would be the context for us to use that video anyway? You know, if we take a picture of a mom that chose life and we use that on social media or whatever, we do that with their permission.
Correct.
Because we have a vested interest in protecting their privacy and protecting that kind of the trust that we build with them in that relationship.
Right. Yeah.
So we're not there to breach that trust. Now, pro-aborts have accused us, of using that footage for things, but it's a false accusation.
Yeah.
Something I want to mention too, it's not off topic, but it's probably not in your article here.
Okay.
But this is a situation I heard about in Washington State, because we realized that if you ever look at these abortion centers, they've got cameras, at Latrobe, they've got cameras on almost all four corners of the building, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And there was a situation at a Planned Parenthood there in Washington State where one of the pro-abortion people, one of the counter protesters or whatever they call themselves, clinic defenders, actually assaulted a sidewalk counselor.
Oh, wow.
And he took out charges, and the city or the police department actually subpoenaed the Planned Parenthood for their footage because they actually had the footage. The camera was pointed in that direction. So they subpoenaed the Planned Parenthood, and they had to give them the footage, and that's ultimately what led to that person being prosecuted.
Oh, wow. I'm surprised they didn't
So that's
with
something
it or
also to
tamper with
consider.
it.
If something does happen, someone threatens you, or really if someone is physically violent, because it's going to be a bit of a process, but definitely I would push for the police department and the prosecution to get Planned Parenthood or the abortion center to hand over their footage.
Yeah.
They have to do that. If they have footage, they have to hand it over.
So I wonder what prevented them from tampering with their footage, because I could see the abortion center where we were at doing everything in their power
Right.
to
Just oh, whoops, we erased it. Yeah.
erase it or something.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it
Yeah.
was the hand of God at work in that
Yeah,
situation.
yeah.
Because to me, it's pretty miraculous.
It is.
But, I think there's a sense in which Planned Parenthood and the abortion clinics don't really want the liability and things that could come with people that are supposedly serving on their behalf. These volunteers that they ask to come out here, if they assault us, ultimately the abortion clinic can be sued.
Yeah.
And I think they want to do everything they can to shield themselves from that. So maybe that's why they gave that up, because they didn't want that person to be out there and create more liability. I don't really know. But it's at least something worth considering. If your camera didn't catch the angle and they have a camera set up, I would definitely be pushing for the police department to get that footage.
Yeah. And do it right there. As we of course counsel you call police immediately if there's any act of aggression or violence.
Right.
And I would urge the police to go right in immediately and get that camera.
Yeah.
Because if they don't, I'm pretty sure in many cases it would be tampered with.
Yeah.
Bottom line, don't count on it.
Right.
Have as much as you are able on your own, protect yourself with your own videotaping. And we're going to go into the second way of doing that. But it's good to know that yes. I think that is true of most facilities you're going to be at. They will have their own video system going. So the second thing is if you don't, you should have a constant surveillance camera like what you've described. We do strongly recommend that. That is looping and constant.
Yeah.
But everybody has a phone camera nowadays.
Yeah.
So don't forget that.
Right.
Bring it with you.
Yeah.
Don't have it, back home in your, or even in your car. Have it in your pocket, ready to use when you're on the sidewalk.
I was going to say, even if your camera is perfectly placed across the street and there's some incident taking place and it's getting the footage, you still should pull out your camera phone and take video right away.
Right.
Because it could be another angle that camera's not getting, and it's a backup. Because you want to be able to hold those people accountable. People that get violent and aggressive, if they get away with it, will get more violent and more aggressive. So if they come out one day, let's say one of the pro-abortion people or something, and they're pushing you a little bit and they're not held accountable, the next day they're going to be pushing you a lot, right?
Yeah.
And then the next day they might actually just hit you. You know?
Yeah.
You give these people an inch and they'll take a mile. So this is all about accountability.
Right. And with the same as with the surveillance camera, with your phone camera, there are pros and cons.
Yeah.
And the positive is sometimes just pulling it out does dampen the level of excitement and the crisis. Sometimes it makes the bad guy go away, shrink away.
Yeah.
Not always.
Right.
The con is sometimes, and I have heard this happen, so I know it does happen, it escalates the aggression.
Yeah. Yeah, this is just what I was talking about earlier. Sometimes it'll make people more angry.
Right.
Most of the time, it will calm them down and de-escalate them because then they know that they're being held accountable and that this video, they know that they could go viral acting like a fool in front of the abortion center. But you have to be aware that sometimes it can increase the anger. I've been, seen incidents take place, pull out my camera phone and have the guy who's yelling at somebody else come right and get in my face and get super aggressive with me.
Right.
Hoping it would de-escalate, it actually escalated the situation. And really, there's no way that we can tell you how it's going to work. But what we can say is you need to still take your camera phone out. And, if they do come over and be aggressive, you don't have to respond to them. You don't have to tell them why you're filming or anything like that. Just keep videotaping. Make sure you get them on video if they're threatening and if they're being aggressive, and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah. Hang on tight to that phone.
Yeah.
Because what happens when I have heard about these escalating is they try to grab your phone.
Yeah. I had a guy actually slap my phone out of my hand.
Yeah.
And it actually fell out of my hand and hit my son who was standing beside me.
Oh, wow.
And I called the police. They showed up. I showed them the video of the incident, and they took that guy right to jail.
They did.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
so that shows you it is well worth it calling the police, but having the video evidence. So when I have seen the anger most often, it's when I have or someone has been inadvertently, usually filming, sometimes purposely, filming a patient, a client.
Right.
Just be careful not to do that. Remember, they're, like you said, they're traveling sometimes from now we're seeing from many states over to conceal this sin. So they are going to respond with great anger if they think that sin is being uncovered and might be,
Right.
shown to the world.
Yeah.
So, so some kind of a summary then of do's and don'ts. We've already mentioned a few times. Don't photograph the clients
Right.
of the abortion center. If it's inadvertent, okay, you've done it, but don't let that be obvious. If you must photograph and a client is in the picture somewhere, but they're not the source of your video or whatever, try and kind of make it not obvious what you're doing.
Yeah.
If possible. That's not always possible. Something about photographing the pro-abortion crowd. We sometimes do it just because we just can't believe what they do.
Right. Yeah.
And we want to show the world. But I think we do need to have to be careful about that. That's
Right.
sometimes exactly what they want.
Yeah. They're just trying to draw attention to themselves, and they end
Yeah.
up really sucking the air out of the room.
Yeah.
And so, if they're not doing things that are violent or, that look like they could be leading to violence, then just don't be videotaping them, really.
Yeah. Don't waste
They
your
fuel off of
time. Don't give them the focus and the attention. Just, your time can be spent better
Yeah.
trying to save babies. Always have the phone on you
Yeah.
and be ready with it to videotape. I have a belt pack, and I've got a side pocket so that the phone is right there. I can
Right.
whip it out instantly. If there is direct aggression. So sometimes this has been an issue for me, especially if it's a really small team or I'm the one that is videotaping and there's direct aggression. And I'm like, do I keep videotaping or do I call the police?
Right.
And I know since I've struggled at that moment about which do I do,
Yeah.
I'm not the only one.
Right, yeah.
Other people need to. And so maybe if we talk about that a little bit before if you find yourself in that situation, what we would recommend you do, you'll do what is best at that moment.
Yeah, I mean, if you can still keep videotaping and have your other teammate, if you have another teammate call 911, you can do that.
Yeah.
But I think the best is, especially if you've got a camera set up and it likely is catching what's going on the camera.
The surveillance camera, you mean, not your phone camera. Right.
Then do shut your video down and call 911 on your phone.
Yeah. Even saying call 911 to your teammate, again, is going to hopefully de-escalate aggression because they know that no one wants the police coming
Right.
after them, usually. We did have one person tell us she already had a record a mile long. She always gets out on bail, so it's no big deal. Call the cops all we want.
Right.
So, but that's not
But
the norm.
that's just all talk anyway.
It is. It is. Remember that video may be the evidence that is needed to either arrest or rebuke
Right.
whoever it is. So it is important that you do have someone videotaping. And I don't know if I mention it, but I think it's probably not a bad idea to tell all team members they could potentially be the person to videotape, but
Yeah.
maybe designate someone. Hey, this is your role.
Yeah.
If you among your other roles, but if you see aggression, you're in charge of trying to get over there and videotape.
Yeah.
Normally, it would be, of course, whoever's closest.
Yeah.
If there's someone close, but it's not a bad idea
Yeah.
to alert team members. So and so is the person that's kind of going to be in charge.
Okay.
In charge of that. We talked about avoid body cams. Sound. I know when I was once assaulted, it was me shouting, "Hey, that hurt."
Yeah.
And it was picked up on the camera.
Yeah.
So not only have a camera that has sound, be sure your sound is on, but don't forget if you're the one being assaulted, don't be afraid to talk about that
Right,
as you're being assaulted.
Yeah.
You don't want to fake anything. It really did hurt what she did. She slammed her sign into my mouth.
Yeah.
So it was a natural response, but as soon as the magistrate saw that, they actually did write a warrant for her. So I think those were the main point. Oh, I did say if we're in that active violence thing and you've got a choice, I would always call the police first. If
Right.
it's an active violence, someo's going to get hurt. Yeah, you need to call. You need to call the police
Yeah.
and maybe sacrifice the video, hoping your surveillance camera is capturing
Yeah.
what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And, these are just some tips that we've kind of laid out for you guys from experience. And, again, we don't want to instill fear in you guys, but we
Right.
do know that this can be a volatile situation. We're confronting evil with truth, and the devil doesn't like it, and people that are living for the devil don't like it when you speak truth. And so we can expect that there's going to be some pushback. Oftentimes it's just verbal, oftentimes it's just angry people, but sometimes it can get violent.
Yeah.
Sometimes with the pro-abortion people, they can take things too far.
Right.
And so it is good, again, to have something to hold them accountable. So having a camera going and, from a couple of angles can be helpful. So hopefully this encourages you guys, and hopefully you can apply some of these principles. This is a pretty short podcast, but again, hopefully just practical and helpful for you guys. As always, you can reach out to me, Daniel, at lovelife.org. I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast that if you want to know what kind of camera we use, I'll certainly shoot you over a link, but you can look on Amazon. There's all kinds that are available. Maybe you can find something better than what we use, but I'll be happy to send you over a link. If you have any other questions, anything you want to run by us, any maybe future episodes you'd like us to cover, subjects for future episodes, you can reach out to me, Daniel, at lovelife.org. You can reach her, Vicky, with a Y, at lovelife.org, and we'd love to hear from you. But until next time, God bless.
God bless you all.
Give me an outlet for love. Give me an outlet for gratitude. I know it will cost me my life, but nothing's too precious since I met you.